Hello, namaste, tashi dele. I hope everybody's doing well. Nice to see everybody. Today I'd like to talk about a topic that is, in my opinion, maybe the most important topic we could study, and that is the disadvantages of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others. Now, there may be a few subsequent videos for this. I'm going to start today and see how far I get. So this topic of contemplating the disadvantages of self-cherishing and contemplating the advantages of cherishing others, it actually comes from this teaching or this text by Shantideva called The Way of the Bodhisattva. And in that text, he talks about exchanging self and other. Now, what he means by this is exchanging the self-cherishing mind or the selfish mind for a mind that cherishes and cares about others. Really, it's the altruistic mind. So what Shantideva is trying to teach us is how to develop love, compassion, and bodhicitta. Love is the wish for others to have happiness. Compassion is the wish for others to be free from suffering. And bodhicitta is the wish to become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings, okay? So let's start off by contemplating the benefits of exchanging self and other and the faults of not exchanging self and other. That's the first teaching we'll do. And then we'll proceed ahead with this particular subject matter, and maybe we'll do additional videos. So one thing we should understand is that when we start studying love, compassion, bodhicitta, we're really striking at the heart of conventional truth, which is the normal everyday truth of the world. People, places, things, self and other, happiness, sadness. And so within this conventional truth, we have karma. Karma is cause and effect. And to make it super simple, any thought, speech, or action plants a seed that becomes the cause for a future effect. So let me say that one more time. So any thought, speech, and action that we engage in plants a seed that becomes the cause for a future effect. Now, good karma versus bad karma. Good karma is any thought, speech, and action. And by the way, I'm providing a very simple version of good karma. We could go karma is a very deep topic. It can actually get very, very complicated, but to put it very simple, to produce good karma, then any thought, speech, or action we engage on should be motivated by love, compassion, and bodhicitta. If everything we think, say, and do is motivated by love, compassion, and bodhicitta, we will be producing good karma because we will be creating happiness for others and for ourselves, okay? Now, bad karma is when we engage in thought, speech, and action that harms others and harms ourselves. Now, what is thought, speech, and action that harms others and harms ourselves? It's thought, speech, and action motivated by, you could say motivated by the 5 poisons: anger, attachment, delusion, jealousy, and pride. So if you engage in any thought, speech, and action, or thought, speech, you could say thought, speech, or action, that's motivated by anger, attachment, delusion, jealousy, and pride, that's going to create negative karma. Now, all of that said, this exchange of self and others, this teaching by Shantideva, is really a teaching about how to create the causes for happiness now and in the future. Not only in the future, but now and in the future. Not only during this lifetime, but now, right now, this moment, and in the future, in this lifetime, and in future lifetimes. So what's really beautiful is that when we practice love and compassion and bodhicitta, unselfish activities that are altruistic in nature, that are, essentially accentuating other sentient beings. When we're doing things to benefit other sentient beings, to make them happy, to bring them joy, to protect them from suffering, this is almost always going to produce positive karma. So, when we talk about love and compassion and these practices of exchanging our normal selfish thinking for the thinking that prioritizes the happiness of others, we're really talking about how to produce good karma, which is how to make ourselves and others happy. So, Geshe Lundup Sopa, the former abbot and founder of the Deer Park Monastery in Wisconsin, in the USA, was a master and a scholar, and he was actually on the board that he was one of the judges or the masters on the board responsible for critiquing Dalai Lama's debate, his debating style. So that just kind of goes to show how profound of a master Geshe Sopa was. Now, Geshe Sopa has a series of books that are really profound, and the books are actually called. Hold on. Let me give you the name of the books. So the books are there's five. It's a series of 5 books called Steps on the Path to Enlightenment. So again, his name is Geshe Sopa, and his books are called Steps on the Path to Enlightenment. Now, I've taken some notes from Geshe Sopa's book and from some other Lama's books, and I'll be reading some quotes here and kind of talking about the points. The first quote is, now we're starting to get into the disadvantages of self-cherishing, okay? So Geshe Sopa says, this selfishness creates disharmony among families, disagreements between friends, and even wars. Shantideva advises us to switch our selfishness to concern for others, because actions motivated by cherishing others will bring peace, harmony, and finally the attainment of enlightenment. It is the cause of attaining all of our temporary and final goals. When we are convinced of the many advantages of cherishing others and the disadvantages that come from selfishness, we will have the desire to change our attitude. So this is really quite interesting, because he's essentially pointing us to the fact that selfishness is responsible for all suffering, whether it's disharmony in a family, disharmony in a relationship you have with somebody, or even country-to-country wars. And when it's a country fighting another country, it's a collective form of selfishness. It's an us versus them, right? So a president or the head of a country will say, my citizens are better than their citizens, or I have to protect my citizens from them. They're evil, they're bad. They come up with this whole series of logic and reasoning to justify going to war. And sometimes countries go to war because they're attacked, and it is self-defense, but the problem is war really never, benefits anybody. So selfishness, actually war is a manifestation of selfishness on one or both sides of the conflict, right? Now, here's a quote from Shantideva. Shantideva says this practice of exchanging self and other is so powerful because whatever happiness there is in the world comes from wanting others to be happy. Whatever misery there is in the world comes from wanting happiness for yourself. So when you first hear this, if you're not already a Dharma practitioner, this quote is a little bit, kind of wakes you up. It's like, whoa, it seems extreme, or it feels extreme when you first hear it, but it's actually totally logical, reasonable, and rational, because everybody is essentially selfish. And so if you're selfish and everybody else is selfish, or let's say you and I are having some kind of communication. If I'm selfish and I want what I want, and if you're selfish and you want what you want, what's going to happen? Conflict. There's not going to be any harmony. There's not going to be any peace, no love. There's just going to be competitiveness, right? Two people trying to win, and that never benefits anybody. So I was thinking about the disadvantages of selfishness and self-cherishing, and I have some examples. One example is you're going the wrong way on a one-way street. So in cities, there's often traffic laws, and one of the traffic laws they have is they limit which way you can drive. And some roads are two-way. You can drive both ways, right? Traffic can be on both sides of the road. Whereas some roads are one-way traffic, meaning you can only go one way. And if a car comes the opposite direction, it's going to cause a crash. So I actually like to think of selfishness a little bit like going against one-way traffic, because everybody's selfish. Everybody's thinking about me, me, me. And when I say everybody, I really just mean the greater majority of living beings. There are rare spiritual yogis and yoginis and practitioners that are not selfish, and they've really eliminated self-cherishing and self-grasping. But by and large, most of us, normal, ordinary people, we are generally speaking quite selfish. And that selfishness really is responsible for all of our suffering. So one way I like to think of it as going the wrong way on a one-way street. So you have all these other cars going this way, and then all of a sudden you're going against the traffic. What's going to happen if you go the wrong way is you're going to have a collision. You're going to have a conflict. You're going to have an explosive, violent crash. And I kind of think of self-cherishing as causing one selfish crash after another. You're going around and you're constantly thinking of me, 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 and you have all of these problems with other people. You have all of these problems with the world. It causes you to be angry, depressed, anxious. It causes so much anxiety because you're resisting. So I kind of like that analogy of going the wrong way on a one-way street. What happens if you go the right way on a one-way street? You're safe, you're protected, you're harmonious. All the traffic's going in the same direction. You don't have any problems. You don't get in a crash. But when you go the wrong way on a one-way street, you're going to have that violent collision. And I think of that violent collision a lot like the violent, kind of aggressive mentality of selfishness. Even if it's not physical violence, it's this way of interacting with the world in which you always put yourself first above others. Another example that I like is, and by the way, these are analogies that I've kind of thought of over the years, and I'm just sharing with you. These analogies I'm sharing are not really coming from Geshe Sopa's book or Shantideva. These are just my own ideas. Another idea is that selfishness is a lot like swimming against the strong current of a river. You think about a strong river with like whitewater rapids. And again, everybody's kind of selfish. And so if you're selfish and everybody else is selfish, you're resisting against all of them. And, rivers go in one direction. And if we go around the world with a selfish mentality, only worried about ourselves, we're just going to be constantly bumping into other people, And I think this is comparable to swimming upstream against a river, because if we're selfish, we're always pushing against the wants of others, trying to get our own wishes against their wishes, right? So there's this competition and this resistance and really kind of going against the world. So you really just have to ask yourself a question. Wouldn't it be easier to just swim, instead of swimming upstream against a river, wouldn't it be easier to let go and just kind of swim downstream? By the way, when we talk about letting go, let go of everything but keep love and compassion and bodhicitta, I look at Buddhism and the teachings of the Buddha and the Dharma that he taught as 1,000,001 ways to let go. 1,000,001 teachings that show us how to let go. Because when we're squeezing and grasping and we're attached and we're overly emotionally invested in things, we suffer immensely. And so if you think about this, river analogy, if you're swimming upstream against the current, you're putting forth so much effort. You're selfish. You're going around the world, you want what you want, or you want to protect only your family. You don't care about anybody else. Or you only care about your friends and your family. You don't care about anybody else, You're really going against the world, and you're loving only a few and going against everybody else. And this is like swimming upstream because you're resisting instead of harmoniously letting go. You're squeezing and you're putting all your effort into swimming upstream, and you could just let go and be in harmony and love everybody else, forget about yourself, and be totally peaceful. Because, really it would require less effort, less resistance to just swim downstream. So I think focusing on the happiness of others and freeing others from suffering is like swimming downstream. It's very easy. You let go. Everybody's going to love you. Everybody's going to agree because you're there to benefit all of them. There's no conflict. There's no resistance. There's no friction. There's no competition. It's beautiful, right? It's not easy to do because we have selfish karma. We have a habit of thinking about me, me, me. But if we do it, it's the most beautiful thing we could do. Another thought is, rigorous physical exercise. When somebody engages in very, very rigorous physical exercise, like sports, when I was a kid, I played football and I wrestled and I played basketball. I really enjoyed all of these different sports. And when I would exercise, and I was in the Marine Corps, so we would exercise rigorously there. And when you really push yourself to the limit, you become so exhausted physically, you kind of lose your intelligence, So imagine somebody climbing Mount Everest, or doing a triathlon. These people are so physically exhausted that their mind loses some of its clarity. It's kind of the mind's kind of cloudy, tired. The body's so sluggish. These people, after this really running a marathon or climbing Mount Everest, they just want to sleep, and their body is not going to allow them to stay awake. They just want to sleep. I think this kind of rigorous physical exercise is similar to going around the world with self-cherishing, We're trying so hard to get our way. We're trying so hard to get people to just respect us and like us and reciprocate all the things we do for them. We want them to reciprocate to us. We want them to, sort of acknowledge and have gratitude when we do nice things for them. When we do something nice for them, we want them to respond, reciprocate, return the favor. We want them to hear what we're saying. We don't want to be dismissed or diminished or ignored or disrespected. It's so much effort that it's exhausting. Holding up this ego, holding up this self. It's totally exhausting. But yet we do it. Every day we wake up and we get angry when people don't do what we want, or when sentient beings don't do what we want. We get angry when they do what we don't want. We get angry when we don't get what we want. We're just constantly pushing and resisting. And that's selfishness. That's self-cherishing. That's me, me, me. And there's nothing but suffering when we're going around the world with a selfish mentality. But it gets worse because we're not only creating unhappiness for ourselves, we're creating unhappiness for others, because when we're worried about what we want and we don't care about other people and other sentient beings, animals, all living beings, they know that we are selfish. They know that we're only out for ourselves. And what happens is that makes them suffer. Have you ever had to try to have a conversation with somebody? You ever try to have a discussion with somebody that is a one-upper? I'm sure you have. One of these people that they just want to tell you all the great things they've done. They don't care about you. They don't care about your illness. They don't care about what's happening in your life. They care about themselves. They're thinking about me, 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 and they're bragging about all these great things they've done. And whenever you try to talk, they interrupt you. I'm not saying this to be negative about these people. I'm not trying to criticize them. But I'm saying this to explain a point. When you have these conversations with selfish people, how do you feel? You feel very frustrated. You might get angry because you want to talk and they won't let you. So being a selfish person makes everybody suffer. Whether you're angry because you want things to go your way, or even if you're happy, but you're so self-obsessed and you're so arrogant and you're so cocky and egotistical that you have to always be right. You have to always talk about all the great things you've done. You know, this basically causes everybody around you to suffer. So there's a great master named Langri Thangpa, and he created a text called the 8 Verses of Mind Training. It's a Lojong text, which means mind training or thought transformation. And one verse of his is, I'm going off of memory, so pardon me if I get it wrong. Okay, here it is. He says, whenever I interact with others, I will view myself as inferior to all, and I will train myself to hold others superior from the depths of my heart. And think about that. When you first hear that, it's like, whoa. Again, he said, whenever I interact with others, I will view myself as inferior to all, and I will train myself to hold others as superior from the depths of my heart. So this is Langri Thangpa telling us how to totally decimate arrogance, how to totally decimate self-cherishing, how to decimate the ego. And there was one class I taught many years ago on 7-point mind training. And I remember students saying, I just don't know if I can do that. I just don't know if I can view myself as inferior. Isn't that really a negative thing to do? What about your self-esteem? And my response was that Buddhism, the whole purpose of Buddhism is to eradicate this belief in the self as a independent entity, because the self exists in dependence upon non-self things and non-self causes. The human body is born based on the mother and the father coming together. The sperm of the father and the reproductive capacity of the mother, they come together, or that you could say the egg, they come together and then produce a body. So our body, to say it belongs to me, quotation me, this came from somebody else. This body we have came from our parents. And their bodies came from their parents all the way back to infinity. So the point is, when that student of mine said, I just don't know if I can, follow this quote from Langri Thangpa, because it seems like it's oppressive almost, And so that's kind of a sign that somebody doesn't understand. The self actually has no independent existence to begin with. The reason we grasp the self is because we don't know that. We don't realize and understand that the self lacks inherent nature. It lacks, the self lacks true existence or independent existence. It's a dependent origination, and it exists in dependence upon all these other factors. So Langri Thangpa's quote is really very powerful and very beautiful, and it's a opportunity for us to let go of this self, to stop resisting, stop pushing everything away. And that doesn't mean that, people should be allowing other people to abuse them or anything like that. That would be taking my words out of context. It just means that if we want happiness, there's a path to happiness, and it is by eliminating self-cherishing. And this doesn't happen overnight. If you really want to do this, I look at it as a lifelong practice. And if you believe in reincarnation, it's a many lives long practice. So I kind of gave a couple of those examples of, what self-cherishing is similar to. And there's a really nice quotation. Again, I'm quoting from Geshe Sopa's book. He says that the great Panchen Lama Losang Chokyi Gyaltsen says in the Guru Puja that self-cherishing is like a chronic disease. He says, Losang Chokyi Gyaltsen says, seeing that grasping the self is a chronic illness that is the cause of undesirable suffering, may I be able to bitterly hold it to blame and destroy the demon of self-cherishing. I'll read that one more time. Seeing that grasping the self is a chronic illness, that is the cause of undesirable suffering, may I be able to bitterly hold it to blame and destroy the demon of self-cherishing. Now, a lot of these lamas will talk about, destroying the demon of self-cherishing. To be clear, they're talking about the thought, the habitual thought of me, the habitual thought that cherishes the self over all other sentient beings. They're not talking about hating yourself or anything like that, or criticizing yourself. They're talking about that constant thought in our mind. I want this. I want her to do that. I want him to do this. Why doesn't he respect me? Why doesn't she respect me? I'm trying so hard and they're just not reciprocating. We do this all the time. We have this inner dialogue. And that is what the Panchen Lama is saying is a chronic illness. A chronic illness is an illness that lasts your whole life. And he's comparing self-cherishing to a chronic illness. So I really believe it's a chronic illness because you really never have any peace when you're constantly cherishing the self. Because again, you're going against the flow of the river, trying to get your own way, right? And that doesn't really benefit you. Now, what happens when instead of cherishing the self, we cherish other sentient beings? There's so much benefit. There have been studies that have proven the benefits of compassion. In fact, I believe there was a study done in Emory University in Atlanta where they had students practice Lojong, specifically Tonglen, which is you do a visualization of breathing in the suffering of others and breathing out happiness to them. So when they did this study, they took the blood of students. They did blood testing like weekly or something like that. And I'm going off memory, so I could be slightly mixing up the details, but after taking the blood, the markers for inflammation had gone down. Inflammation causes all kinds of physical problems, right? Heart disease, diabetes. Inflammation is really sort of like the precursor to all of these different forms of sickness. And they found that by doing this compassion meditation, your physical health increases. Your inflammation markers go down. That's a very compelling benefit, My Lama, one of my teachers, Karma Gyurmi, who on this YouTube channel, he taught the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas. He says that when you have compassion for other sentient beings, There's no guarantee that it's going to benefit them, but there's a guarantee that it's going to benefit you. It will absolutely benefit you to have compassion for other sentient beings, you know? And that study of the physical benefits, actually there's many studies of the physical benefits of having love and compassion. There's another book, I'll try to find it and maybe I can put it in the description here. This PhD from, I believe she's from Stanford. She did all these different studies, scientific studies, on the impacts of compassion. And it's amazing. There's so many physical benefits, even beyond just the one I just mentioned at Emory University. So the benefits, you know, there are physical benefits, there are absolutely karmic benefits. If you want to produce the causes for happiness, if you want happiness, you have to produce the causes for happiness. And remember what I said earlier, any thought, speech, or action that you do based upon the wish of love, which is the wish to benefit other sentient beings. Love is the wish for other sentient beings to have happiness. So any thought, speech, or action you do motivated by love, or motivated by compassion, which is the wish for other sentient beings not to suffer, when you take action based on these two things, it produces the causes of happiness, not only for yourself, but for others. So when you create this positive karma, everybody wins. There's no losers. Some people might say, oh, there's a saying in America, don't take my kindness for weakness. And a lot of people are really big on setting boundaries with others to maintain their own respect. And I understand why therapists try to teach people to set boundaries. They're doing it for their own sanity. But really the true sanity comes from letting go. Letting go of your boundaries, letting go of your narrow-minded, selfish mentality, opening your heart. You know, the Bodhisattva teachings say you give away your body to sentient beings. Do anything you want with this body. Of course, you have to get to a certain point to be able to actually do that. But that's the aspiration, that's the goal of these, you know, teachings of love and compassion. So you got the physical benefits, you got by the way, what's the opposite of compassion? Anger. You know, it's been proven that type A personalities have more heart disease. Anger and aggression causes more stress, physical heart disease and stroke and heart attacks. And, you know, all of these, you know, physical problems arise from the opposite of love, compassion, bodhicitta, generosity, patience, all of these really great qualities that are taught on the Bodhisattva path. They protect us physically. The great Lama, His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, says, what will protect you until enlightenment is your own love. And remember, your own love is the wish for other sentient beings to have happiness. So really the benefits of love, compassion, and bodhicitta are almost inconceivable. Physical benefits, your mental benefits, you're happier, you're less stressed, you sleep better. Buddha taught that loving kindness, one of the benefits of loving kindness, is that you sleep better. So there's so many, you know, inconceivable benefits of these kind of the practice of cherishing others. So I think this is probably a good stopping point, and I will almost guarantee that I will be teaching additional classes, because I'd like to go through these teachings on exchanging self and others. So we've kind of gone through today the disadvantages of self-cherishing. Just to summarize, when you place yourself above everybody else, there's no peace now because there's constant conflict with others. So there's no peace now. And then you create negative karma for the future. So you're guaranteeing in the future you're going to suffer from these are the disadvantages of self-cherishing. The advantages of cherishing others, which are love, compassion, and bodhicitta, again, You're physically happy now. You sleep better at night. Your body, that study I told you about, your body has lower markers for inflammation. That blows my mind. Others around you are happier. You're happier. You sleep better, less stress. Physically, your body's in better shape. There's so many benefits. So why doesn't everybody just do it? We'll get more into that in the next class. The bottom line is we have been watering the seeds for self-cherishing for so long that we're karmically bound to self-cherishing. So that's the problem, is we have to fight against our karma. So when you start doing these practices, you have to be very, very patient with yourself. You have to be very gentle with yourself. That doesn't mean you should just justify bad behavior. I've heard people say, I'm a Buddhist, not a Buddha. And to me, that's true. We're Buddhists, not Buddhas. But that's a very slippery slope, because you could use that to justify all kinds of bad behavior. To me, a better response is, I'll try harder, I'll try to do better. But, so own your mistakes, be the first one to own your mistakes, say sorry. But at the same time, be very gentle with yourself, because trying to transform the habit patterns and the karmic, habitual tendencies and propensities that we've been watering, the seeds of which we've been watering for infinite lifetimes, that's not easy. Now, if you've been doing this for trillions and trillions of years and trillions of different bodies, you've been replaying this grasping at a self and cherishing a self and trying to protect a self for so long, you're not going to undo, you're not going to unwind those habits or dismantle those habits overnight. So when you go into these practices, you have to be very, very patient with yourself and forgive yourself and forgive others and be gentle and give yourself a chance to heal by reducing this self-cherishing. But when you get angry and you act out, don't get down on yourself and think, oh, I'll never get there. I'll never be able to do this. Don't do that. I did that. I learned the hard way in 2014 when I first found Buddhism. Well, I found Buddhism in 2013, but in 2014 I started practicing Tibetan mind training, the 7-point mind training, and really trying to smash my anger and my ego down. And I got to a point where I had studied and meditated quite deeply on these fundamentals of reducing self-cherishing and understanding the disadvantages of self-cherishing. I really understood it well intellectually. But the problem was, even though I'm a fairly smart person, I can learn concepts, that intelligence didn't help me because the habits were much stronger. So my habit for being, in those days, being very stressed out at work, very ambitious, very hungry for success, very competitive, very assertive, I had all of these habits, and what would happen is I would get very angry. I worked with these people that were difficult to work with, and at that particular time, I was getting very angry at them, and then the other part of my mind was angry at myself because I knew better, but I couldn't let go of those habit patterns. So I'm just sharing this with you because I learned the hard way that our karma is a real thing that we have to, it doesn't exist inherently, but karma functions. Karma is something that once you start practicing, you begin to learn that the mind has a lot of hidden things that just kind of come up, The more you practice, you think, well, I should have already cleared away this anger. And then it just shows its face, So the point is, you have to be very, very patient with yourself. You have to make strong aspirations to let go of the self-cherishing again and again. But at the same time, You have to be very patient with yourself, very loving of yourself, very gentle. It's like, the self-talk should be like, hey, it's okay. You lost your temper. Now confess it. There's a practice of confession that we do where we do, in the Vajrayana, we do Vajrasattva practice, which is the practice of confession and purification of karma. And you don't need to do Vajrasattva to purify your karma. The biggest thing is having strong regret, and confessing it. And you could confess it and just imagine the Buddha in front of you. Confess, hey, I did this. I said the wrong thing to this person. I said some hurtful words. And I strongly regret that. And I want to make a strong wish not to repeat it. And so you take refuge in the Buddha. And you confess this. And so you make these strong aspirations to reduce your self-cherishing. And then when you find yourself acting out, you do that confession. Very simple. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to start doing the mantras. I do them, but you don't have to. The bottom line is, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. You have to be very gentle and patient with yourself, okay? So I'll continue on with these teachings on exchanging self and other, but let's dedicate the merit of this practice. I dedicate the merit of this practice to all sentient beings. May all sentient beings who have been our mothers infinite times in the past, may they receive all the positive karma and the merit that we've generated as a result of this Dharma practice. And so we dedicate this merit to all sentient beings. We don't try to keep it for ourselves. We dedicate it to all sentient beings. And it's taught that by dedicating it to all sentient beings, it protects that merit and it preserves it from future bouts of anger. So, okay. Thank you, my friends. I look forward to sharing more Dharma with you. Enjoy the Buddhist holiday and take care of yourselves. And please be happy. Okay? Take care.